AI, generative AI, talking about the top of the SERPs. I don't know what else you have in mind, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
all for that topic right now because I think that's the hot thing, and I think that everyone is kind of secretly pooping their pants over what AI is going to do to SEO and what that is going to do in the long run and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, take it away, get into whatever you want. I'll sprinkle in some questions, but I thought that I would just kind of let you drive because I know you have a lot to say.
Yeah, no, thanks, Paul, for having me on. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, been doing this since 1996, so since the early days of the internet, when nobody was putting credit cards into it or doing anything fun. And then the bubble hit, and of course, everything kind of came back to earth. $175 CPMs were not attainable, more of like $2.50 CPMs, and so that's what you see. The piece is going to hell. But when you talk about generative AI and search, I mean, somebody who's been doing SEO since Ask Jeeves, I see generative AI results at the top. There's so many mixed reviews among SEO experts about whether it's how to get in there, how to be included, but also at the same time, how much is that taking away from your organic results as well too? Is your click budget, so to speak, is that being depleted because it's there's zero click searches being done? And that's really, I think, the bigger question is how can we measure the impact of Gen AI on our search, our SEO efforts, right? We used to see a lot of clicks on it. Now, if it's being included in generative AI, maybe they're not clicking on the links to say, who supplied you the information here. I'm good enough with the answer I got, and moving on. Never hitting you, but who makes money that way? Well, Google.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. And not to say that Google's evil or anything like that. I mean, there's plenty of, I mean, granted, most of the things that they've come out with in the last 3 to 6 months are all geared towards, shortening the amount of keyword length that you can use for pay-per-click listings, right? So it's all going to be, the broad search is not really broad search anymore. So they want you to use 3 keywords or maximum 4. Yet I know that highly intentful searches are probably a lot less than the non-intentful searches, right? So I want the highly intentful long tail stuff. That doesn't make them a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So like mesothelioma makes them a lot of money, the term but mesothelioma attorneys in Lexington, Kentucky that have 15 years experience or more, that keyword phrase doesn't particularly do well for them. But it does for the attorney who's in the local market, and they get their ad right away, right? So that SEO guy who's now working for that attorney, that mesothelioma attorney who's spending, close to $100,000. I just talked to one guy spending $60,000 a day in pay-per-click, 60 grand a day in pay-per-click. Mesothelioma attorneys, right? So they want the smallest number that they want. So
yeah, I used to make AdSense websites. Maybe you and I talked about this back in the day, but I made AdSense sites for medical terminology, and I would buy the exact match domains. I would buy like mesothelioma lawyer in city name, or I'd buy like phlebotomist degree, or like certain types of doctors, and physician assistant salary.com and stuff like that. Because I don't know how I figured it out. I mean, it was some guy on Black Hat World or some other forum who was giving out the information, but it was like a list of the top paying keywords for AdSense for Google for clicks. And yeah, some of those clicks at the time were like, I don't know, $10, $20, $30 a click. So I imagine that it would be not hard
always
to
been
pay for that kind of
$99. I mean, today is still $99 a click.
Wow.
It
Yeah, so
hasn't changed. But that's driven by the fact that the attorneys behind it don't even have to go to court if they get a really good case. And basically, if they can just prove that the guy worked at a certain location and he died from mesothelioma, they just submit the right paperwork, and it's it's $1.5 million for the family, and they get $230,000 immediately. So spending that kind of money in pay-per-click isn't unheard of. The problem is that most of it's ineffective. I know botnets that are trained on meso terms just to make money off of the term. And, I hate to say it, but Google doesn't stop them. So, they have no reason to. And that's the other part of the equation is where does it stop with Google? If you want to talk about Gen AI, well, yeah, to them, is it a boom for them? Well, how do they make their money, right? Showing ads for one, but basically you got to click on an ad for Google to make money, right, Paul? So if the more
from
pages
the search
you
engine,
can see,
yeah.
right, the more money you got. Yeah, we're not talking about their ad platform, but from PLAs and search products, that they have. That's how they make their money is you clicking on a paid link, right? So the more paid links, which is what they put right above, you can't get past the first above the fold without making 4 paid links before any organic link shows up, right? So the more they can show that to you, they figure at some point you're going to click on one. But if they only show you one and you go, oh, that's the place I want to go, now you're off Google. Now you're on your site, and Google doesn't make any money. Google doesn't like that because that's not a good way to keep shareholders happy. So what they've devised is, let us start restricting the long tails. Let us start adding more real estate that we control, like Gen AI, and let us start getting those results into the consciousness of the end user so that they don't click on a worthless link. They click on a paid link that we now understand what they're reading, and then the next thing that they do, we can even more personalize those results to that person. And with Gen AI being in there, but also the advent of quantum computing, which Google is a huge researcher into quantum computing, that's going to allow that modeling to go to the next level. Did you can read where Google wants to restart the 3 Mile Island reactor. Why? Because they need more power for not just Gen AI. Gen AI, yeah, okay, but quantum computing is like literally right around the corner. IBM is starting to lease out time on theirs. This is huge because now all those scenarios that Amazon's really good at trying to predict behavior, that everybody's like, oh my God, that black box they have is amazing. Well, yeah, because they spent almost $1 billion on perfecting it. Now quantum computing comes in and says, I can run 1 billion scenarios at once. And I can tell you almost down to a person who's going to buy the next hair bow, the next bullet, the next this, and this, only because I've run it against almost the entire population in the last 14 seconds. That's the difference between what's happening today and where we will be 5 to 7 years from now, and maybe even sooner. But once quantum computing starts to become more, it isn't like right now. It's like it's like trying to get time at the nuclear accelerator here in Fermilab. It's like I got to book it 5 years ahead to get access to the supercomputer, right? Mm-hmm. Well, think about how computing was done. I mean, that's how in the 50s, that's what IBM did with their supercomputer. They rented it out, and only like universities and big organizations that had a lot of money could do that. And that's the same thing that's happening right now with computing power that's going to be manifested, not just at the super level, but at the mid level and then at the lower levels over time. I think my kids, my grandkids will have the benefit of that computing power to power their world. I mean, already my 7-year-old just asks Alexa pretty much anything. What's the weather? What's what time's the school bus? I mean, they're so used to asking something else for questions and assisting them. Like we had to go to a library. I mean, this is there was effort put in to actually find the answer.
Oh yeah,
the answers are here. Quantum computing will. There's so much good that it can do, but there's so much evil it can be done too. And I think Google will adopt quantum computing for its algorithm faster than anybody will imagine. and it will set them apart. If they don't get knocked down for antitrust, yeah, exactly. If they don't get knocked down for that, but they'll find a way to just restructure themselves into, a company that supplies them the information, and then, it's completely separate. I know we're called Alphabet, but here's company Z, and here's company Y, and here's company X, and there's company, it's just a matter of how they're going to structure it. But quantum computing will change the face of it. And what I see as a trend, and maybe, I'd love to hear what your thoughts is, because you're actively doing SEO for people, is, what have you seen from your clients or from your experience that Gen AI is doing to the results, to people clicking?
You hear a lot of chatter right now about clicks being down. Everyone's kind of losing a little bit of traffic here and there. I don't really have enough data myself on the client work that I'm doing at the moment to say how it's affecting a few business owners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a huge grasp on it, honestly. So that's kind of what I was looking at you for. But, I've talked to a couple of other SEO guys recently, and they're like, organic traffic is down and the regenerative thing is happening. And I don't know, like I see it at the top there, and it takes a summary, and then it does show you where the summary came from. It shows you like 2 or 3 or 4 sources, and you have the opportunity to click on those websites and go to the site and continue reading along on whatever they have to say. I don't, as a typical SEO best practice concept of just doing what works over a long period of time, writing content consistently, it's just like the generative AI is just one more thing at the top of the page that you could click on.
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, people are still going to scroll down and look for something else. It's the same as anything else in life. You're not going to, if you want to learn how to cook a certain dish, you're not going to watch the one YouTube video on how to do it. You're going to watch 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. You want to hear how to cook that dish from a lot of different people. So I still see human beings looking at the AI as like one of the many answers, and then scrolling down more to look at more pages that have, more information, another point of view, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how well, I guess, that, and I think time will tell how people click on the resources that Google has put together. A lot of them, I can say that, not a lot, but I mean, of the searches that I see, a lot of it is just so rote that it doesn't really add to the conversation, right? But, it depends on the level of user at the end of it, right? It really, you got to think about who's consuming it, right? And if it's for consumers, I think, it's helpful. I think on the B2B side, there's a lot of nuance that Gen AI basically misses. And so that the quality of those results, I think you said, makes people want to go further. But then I start to see like generative AI bots like Copilot and Genesis and my favorite, Perplexity.ai, that, are answer engines. So, I mean, I guess the next question is the search engine a dying thing? And are the next generation of people who are going to use the internet going to look for answer engines like a Perplexity AI, as opposed to a Google, where I get what Google thinks is important, but Perplexity searches all the, if you pay for it, you get all the large language models that you can, Claude and a few others that you can choose from, depending on which one is better at stuff. Like today, I had to do an Excel spreadsheet to find, I had a list of 500 company names, and I needed the URLs. And so instead of going to Perplexity, I know that Copilot does better with Excel type content because they own Excel. So, so I go to there, and it did. Every single one, it matched it all up. It was perfect. And then I asked Perplexity to write me the formula for Excel to take one thing out of one thing, to check this against this, and then put this in this. And it gave me the exact formula I needed. So there's a lot of AI that goes on that's helpful. But I think in the longer term, it's going to be the Gen AI piece for search is definitely eating its own, kind of almost eating its own lunch. But they're finding ways, like you see more sponsored ads coming up at the top of listings instead of at the bottom. It's just something that seems to be pervasive so that you can't get to the organic content except by having to scroll through, by having to engage. And that's something that I think is a trend that I'm seeing as far as that when I see that type of generative AI results being shown. So for what it's worth, like I said, I still think quantum computing will change all of that because it can run so many scenarios and so many models so fast that it can basically predict your behavior based on a model based on millions and millions and millions of people. Mm-hmm. Same thing it's doing for cancer research where, instead of, because the way quantum AI works is a typical computer solves, if you have a maze and you have like 14 different paths, but only one path gets to the right one, it'll run all 14 paths in succession, right? Whereas, quantum computing will run everything at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so knowing that those companies that are focused on profitability of engagement of eyeballs, which is Google and Yahoo and anybody else who runs a search engine, Bing, Microsoft, they're going to tend to go to that because they have enough money to support that. And number two, the benefits are huge. If they could say, Paul, I know what you're going to buy 2 months from now, and I'm going to start putting ads in front of you, would you turn that down? No. And you know what else they're going to do? They're going to turn around and say Amazon's going to use it, and then they're going to sell you your next customer. They already tried to, right? AWS, what's the other one that they sell you ads through at Amazon? You're the Amazon expert. So
don't put me on the spot for that one. I just learned about that recently. Something DP, KDP, NDP, and DP. I don't know.
But anyway, they try to sell you ads, right? Any way that they're trying to sell you ads, which is basically placement, is shelf space, right? It's basically the same thing as what you have in a supermarket. Who gets the right placement at eye level, and how much you're going to pay to get that placement, right? And so that's where I think search engines. And Amazon's a search engine. 50% of searches, for products to buy start on Amazon or some crazy number about that. So, it's not just generative AI and Google, which is, what we, from an SEO perspective, Google's, very important, and Bing seems to follow along. Whatever you do well on Google, Bing seems to like. So I've always noticed that if you do the right things for Google, Bing seems to always follow. I don't know, what's your take on that?
I was going to ask. First of all, I was going to make a joke about whether or not Bing is still around.
Well, $10 billion investment into OpenAI makes Bing very, 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 very important to Microsoft again.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Copilot has made their Bing has gotten more popular. I mean, if you look at like the number of searches being done on Bing over the last 6 months to 8 months since they integrated Copilot, I would almost imagine that you're going to see some increase in engagement. It probably isn't going to be 10 to 15 points, but it could be 2 to 3 points additional, search traffic. I haven't done any research. It's just a feeling I have based on, listening to people. But, Bing. The cool thing about Bing, and this is just a real sidebar, Bing and AOL, I know most people are like, does that still exist? It does. But Bing, for the most part, you get a little bit different of an audience there, at least from the B2B side. I've always noticed that Bing is like your engineers and some more professional guys just are really like, they get that bone and they just don't want to let that Bing bone go, right? They're like, nope, I use Bing. I tried Google. Crap results. I'll just use Bing. I've trusted. They've never owned an Apple computer. They've only known Windows operating systems their entire lives. So, but it's funny because people ignore Bing because the volume isn't there, right? It's 10 times the volume of Google, right? And so they're like, I can't make enough money to make sense of it. Well, the conversion ratio on Bing typically is much higher than it is on Google. So that just a side note about Bing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those kinds of numbers because people do need to hear that kind of thing. I always just thought that Bing was just copying Google's results. Honestly, I thought that they're either leasing the technology or they just crawled Google's responses to everything and then said that was their answer.
You're not far off because if you Google My Business, they literally they have Bing My Business or whatever they call it, their Bing business account, and or Microsoft Business, whatever, and it just says port over your stuff from Google's My Business. I mean, there's no. I mean, it's not even. It's just like right there in front of you. Like, yeah, we didn't even try. We're just,
right.
Yeah,
there's a Bing Webmaster Tools to Google Search Console. There's a Bing Local Business to Google's My Business. I mean, yeah, they just try to. Well, even the ad platform is like we're trying to just copy Google Ads and make it,
I mean that's where I thought that they had the advantage with Copilot on there is because Bing has. I mean, I probably use it more now simply because I use Copilot. Because I know Copilot's good for some things. It's not good for everything, but it's good for like Word documents, for PowerPoints, anything Microsoft owned. I find it's really good to ask it to do stuff that, like, put this into a PowerPoint. Do it in any other one. Do it in Genesis. Do it in ChatGPT. You will not get it organized as well as Copilot will do it.
That's nice. That's nice to know that it integrates with their platforms pretty well. I mean, I used it a couple of times recently just to test the content creation and the image generation. I thought it was pretty good, but yeah, if I knew that it was working well with Word and Excel and all that, then I would definitely use it for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I have another one that I use called Taskade, which I use for writing tasks. So I don't have it rewrite stuff for me. That's the one thing I don't. I have it like if I need outlines, if I need do some research. There's a really good one that I use. I can't even think of the guy's name now, but there's a couple of AI things that are coming out now from marketers where they've taken their information, their books on marketing, and had AI read them, and then basically spit out really good marketing stuff for, just outlines and if you need a marketing outline for business plans, things like that. It's really really well done. I wish I could find the link. Maybe after this, I'll send it to you. So, anyways, get back to the Gen AI discussion. I definitely see Gen AI as having an impact on your results. And one of the things that Will Reynolds suggested a couple of months back is start to write more to answer questions. If your site doesn't have an FAQ, you might want to put an FAQ up because this is if you notice, like what gets into Gen AI, FAQs seem to get in there. And when you write like to answer a question in your H2s, ask the question in your H2.
Yes, correct. All of my clients are now being told to fully flesh out their FAQ page and do a better job with that. Yeah, that's very important.
And resources too. I like just a page called resources. You'd be surprised what. See, Google, you can train it kind of because everybody's just there's markers around the internet. So, everybody's got an about us page. Everybody's got a contact us page. So it expects to have those things, right? That's kind of, Google's little formula is like, if you don't, if you go against the grain, we don't really reward that, so that doesn't help. You're not going to win doing that, right? I mean, I have a site now that we're doing a microsite for the company I work for now. And it's all dedicated to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is, just a mundane act that was signed by Biden that puts $1.2 trillion back into the economy for infrastructure jobs. Well, we wanted to do a thought leadership website. We opened the site. We put up content. I spent a lot of money on a webinar with a really well-known authority in there. I had some really well-written blog posts done, some other resources, the executive summary. And went to town, right? And like, okay, we're going to do SEO, right? And then you look and you start going, yeah, actually what you told me, Paul, is good luck with that. So it's all government sites. It's like I'm going up against whitehouse.gov. I'm going up against all these here, and we're starting to beat them. But the one thing that was working well for me is when I found content partners like magazines and trade pubs that would republish my work or my white paper or blog articles, they score really well for the terms I want to. So I'm going back and saying to those publications where my links are, my backlinks are, hey, would you mind updating the content with this fresh content that I have, that all you got to do is just change these 10 words in this. I've already written it for you. I've already put the backlink for you. And we're having some pretty good success with that, especially if I hold the carrot out to say, yeah, I might want to buy some advertising on your website. So I know the editorial and advertising sales are usually not connected at all with a heavy dashed line. So that's been helping a lot. And right now, I mean, we're actually seeing some first page results for some of the terms that we've been looking for, not high traffic, but intent based for our traffic for infrastructure construction companies. We're starting to score pretty well for some of those terms. Not first page, but second page, close to first page. It's only been 6 months. I mean, and I'm going up against whitehouse.gov. I mean, it's like really, it's like going up against Wikipedia. It's like, oh, okay, well, you could spend, a lot of money trying to beat Wikipedia, but you're never going to have a 90 authority score. It's never going to happen. I don't care who you are. Google just doesn't let 90 happen. So so that's the sort of stuff that, I like to play with and prove to my company, like, mini sites work. The company I work for has a major site, which it's like 4 pounds of sausage and a 2-pound casing. It's just too much in there. It's trying to shove everything in, every brand, all 22 brands we own, trying to shove it under one umbrella. And the problem with that is it's great, if you want to do that and kind of present a big enterprise type company. The problem is SEO. If you don't have the proper ontology and then leads to the proper hierarchy and the proper taxonomy under that, if you've got businesses that I sell mechanical timers down to, and then I sell work gloves. How am I supposed to optimize for safety gloves versus a timer that has none of the facets are the same, none of the content is the same for it, and I'm supposed to tell Google, yeah, come to my website and crawl the entire site.
So are you saying you would rather, in some cases like that, break out into mini sites and build those sites out with content?
For vertical penetration, by all means. So if I was going after, say, wastewater, and I wanted to get the attention of electrical engineers at wastewater plants across the United States, I would probably, rather do it with a mini site like, electricity and wastewater.com or something like that, and be able to, like, just promote the type of products that they use in that, right? Across the spectrum of 22 brands that I have, what's the most searched for thing by these people to there, right? And there's other ways to do it. I mean, I can do it with my audience targeting and Google Analytics, Google Ads, from using custom audience list builders that basically say, I want this title at these companies or organizations, and then go after them with the proper message, then send them back to not the main site because they could just wander around aimlessly. A mini site allows me to concentrate the content in one place, which then allows me to concentrate my authority on the subject matter. If I was putting this into my main site, the way that Google looks at it, it's 1 page out of 42,000, as opposed to a mini site. This is 1 page out of 16.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much easier for me to control the hierarchy and the taxonomy that we use for that without having to go really in depth, like having a search engine and all that sort of stuff. I can put Google search on it. I don't have to put my Hawk search instance on that. I use Hawk search on my website because that's the number one thing people do is search, right? So I don't want them searching around. I want them focused on the content, and I want them seeing my CTA. I want them filling out the form that I'm going to ask them to do, and I want to put them in my CRM so that I can market to them from HubSpot.
On a mini site like that, are you targeting enough long tail phrases to make it rank and more worthwhile more quickly? Are you buying a domain name with some authority already? Because in my mind, if you're starting fresh with a brand new domain with no domain authority and you're trying to rank for stuff, you better do some pretty thorough keyword research before you even get started. So do you find that the mini sites, do they take a long time to rank? Do some go faster than others? And then does it end up being a positive return for your brand or your client or whatever you're trying to do?
A lot to unpack there. Mini sites they're situational, right? So if you want to reach a specific audience with a message, but your website has a lot of messages to a lot of different audiences, you want to consider a mini site. And a mini site will allow you to then, go into a specific vertical, like I said, like wastewater, right? So, there's probably, 500 to 600 wastewater facilities throughout the United States, depending on the municipality. So it's usually, I do B2B. Now, B2C, totally different. Can't comment on that, but mini sites for B2C would be more along the lines of what you see coming through on your Facebook ads or your LinkedIn ads, where it's like selling a airplane, an RC glider or a drone or some other thing, where it's basically just a sales site, right? And it's a landing page with a lot of, now it's, testimonials, so reviews, and a little bit of copy. In the day when Paul and I I first met Paul, long format landing pages for sales copy was the way to sell. That was the way. You wrote long form copy. You beat people over the head until they felt like they were stupid for not buying for the product that you were doing. That was good copy. The Yannick Silvers of the world that taught, the best copywriting in the world, all thrown out the window because all people want to see is 5-star reviews.
I still see some of the long forms. I actually just did an episode with a guy, and we were joking around about long form ClickFunnels pages with a bunch of obnoxious sales copy on them and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend actually who has made a very good living off of using those to sell different types of products, and the formula is still there. I find it amazing that anybody would scroll that far. Like, I can see how the video sales pages work well because it's like video, but I'm like, man, who is getting like sucked into like 10,000 words like this? But I don't know.
Russell Brunson's audience, that's who is. Anybody who wants to work from
right. Right, exactly.
I worked for Russell, so I can say without a doubt, I worked for some of the biggest work from home practitioners in the world. At one point, that was my job, is to create CPA offers or take their cost per action offers that they had and move them. Like Sean Casey, I worked directly for him, and I built the Offerati, which is a CPA network where we took all his offers that he either designed himself, the content. It was all content selling. It's all, how to make $1 million from your kitchen table. And basically content selling, and then all of his friends, which he would charge. At the time, he had like 4 million emails that he was, hawking out to people that had programs that they wanted to sell to his audience, and he would charge them a large fee up front to put them in the email, and then a percentage of every sale that went past because you had to go through his gateway. Smart, very smart guy. Beautiful model. And just really focused on what he did on there. But once again, it's all work from home. So it's kind of like nobody ever opens up. Russell used to tell me, I worked for Russell for a while, and he used to say, people buy my stuff, 99 out of 100 people never open it. So they buy a CD-ROM and a big workbook and, everything that looks really great on the website and what have you. They paid $500, and now they're going to get one-on-one sessions and never opened the book.
I find consumer habits like that to be so confusing. Like this last guy that I was working for, he was like, yeah, a pretty large percentage of our products are going to end up in a dump somewhere, like in a waste yard, in a wasteland. Yeah. Like people are just going to like give these as gifts for Christmas or whatever, and they're just like the grandkids are never going to open them.
Right. It's all impulse buy. It's impulse buy, right? And so, I like I said, I haven't done consumer in forever, since I did Lobstergram. So, and that was 15 years ago or longer as far as that. Actually, Lobstergram was the first ad up on pay-per-click 15 minutes after it opened for Google. So it's up on my LinkedIn. So the guy's talking about it. The head of
that was the first ad ever, really?
First ad ever up on Lobstergram. I have a letter from Google. It's up. I have it posted up on my LinkedIn from Google that told Dan, there's a wacky Dan the Lobster Man, that his ad was the first ad ever put up on Google. And the guy got on stage and he said a couple of years ago at the big Google Ads conference, and he said, from our first ad, a lobster seller from a lobster home delivery service from Chicago. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. There's only one of those. I know who that is. And so I investigated. And then I eventually had some guy hit me up and he's like, I was the one that put the first ad up with my lobster company. I'm like, yeah, I don't make a career out of telling people that, but I do got a letter from Google that says we were the first. You got a letter? So, I mean, whatever. There's a lot of firsts that I've done in the internet, doing it since 1996. But, some of the most fun, not the most fun, but one of the most fun things to do on the internet is definitely to watch your pages ranking your eyes and to see in the first three results, the amount of traffic that generates as opposed to everything else. Mm-hmm. When it happens, you're like, wow, it really is above the fold. Everything above the fold gets clicked on. And if you notice what Google's doing, they're reducing the amount of organic above the fold content. And that's, if you want to talk about Gen AI, it's part of their larger strategy to take over the results and not really get people off their page, but to give them as much information as they can to get them to click on something that they will actually click on a paid ad. And so by engaging people more, it seems like they're getting less, but actually over time, they get more because they're cutting down on the organic content that's on that page. Look how fast video comes up, right? So you know what video is? That's a gold mine for them because YouTube, you don't have to click on anything. The ad just shows they get paid.
Yeah.
So they have a real goal to get you over to YouTube to watch as many videos as you possibly can.
It's an auto-playing algorithm as well. So if you sit there and let it run, it's just going to keep on playing more videos and more ads and then recommending more and more. Yeah.
Right. Well, that is, and so that's another thing that you're starting to see is I haven't seen it in generative AI results. I haven't seen them linking to YouTube in Gen AI results, but I have seen it much more prevalent. Like video is coming up. 3 videos are being shown right below the PLAs now. So that's one of their major things that they want to get you over to YouTube. Why do they want to get you over? It's passive income. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Passive income you know what? Google search, that's active income, right? Somebody has to actually take an action for them to make money. So the less that they can put of the organic in front of you, the more they can make because they're going to put paid links in there. And as their algorithm gets smarter about you until you clear your cookies, at least that's what they tell you. Right. God only knows.
I don't think that works anymore.
I think there's more at play there as far as that with supercomputing and all the power that they have now to capture data. I mean, your social hash is just your MD5, as we call it. Your MD5 is just being added to, and who maintains your MD5? Google and Facebook. So it's to me that your activities are only going to become way more monitored and modeled, and so that you as a person become more of this entity that's one of millions and millions of people that Google is now keeping track of all of your stuff. Think about it. I mean, you say something and 30 minutes later you see an ad on your phone. You didn't ask about it. You didn't do anything. It's because they're listening. If they can listen to your voice, don't you think they can listen to your web actions? I mean, pretty damn well. I mean, the voice stuff is pretty creepy, right? And they won't admit that that's what they're doing, but we all know that that's how that happens. It's just listening for keywords. When it hears one, it goes, "Oh, okay, you're in the right market, you're in the right age group, you're in the right demographic. I'm going to serve you that ad because I heard bowling from somebody. Now you're going to get a Bolero ad, on your mobile phone when you're playing, some word game."
My wife and I play a game when that happens, when we're watching TV or something. End of the day, we're watching like something on Hulu and the ads come up. Mm-hmm. One of us will say, probably once a week, we'll say, "That's interesting. I was just talking about that thing with somebody else." And so me being the marketer in the house, I have to start thinking about how they fed that ad into the system to show it up in this profile for either myself or for my wife on our TV. And I'm like, oh, was it IP retargeting? Did they hear us on the Alexa device? Like, was it a text message? Was it on Facebook? I mean, there's so many different ways that they just compiled it all into one profile and then they just slide it into
CTV.
Whatever
It's
advertiser.
Ads 360 is the actual vehicle that they're using to do that.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's because
whatever advertiser is ready to spend money on you, they get to show up next in the queue of the Hulu ads. It just pops up like first or whatever because they bid the most on it.
Yeah, because Hulu works with Google Ads, who serves up their CTV content. Simplify does the same thing too. Simply.fi. They're the geolocation experts that we use and for all of our geofencing campaigns. And they have a direct pipeline into CTV. So you have to spend a minimum, it's like 20 grand a month for Ads 360. You fact check me before you put this live. But there's a certain minimum for you to be able to serve ads into the streams. And you have to be part of Ads 360 to get into that. And if you're not, then we use Simplify to use it as a backdoor into streaming on local channels, because we do a lot of working with branches of large companies. So in the local branches, a lot of what we need to do is to get our name out in front of the people who work there, but also the people who buy there, the contractors that buy there, and then also the people that work there, to understand we're an option. When you run out of something, we're an option. And television advertising adds a whole halo to your company's image, right? So if you're on television, they assume, and with a well done ad, not something that looks like you filmed in your backyard.
I was going to say, I've seen a lot of bad TV ads.
Because they just
it's more accessible now. It's easier for anybody to get.
I know. It's usually it was the realm of local car dealers with bad ads, but now it's everybody can have a bad ad. But
I'm seeing beef jerky and soap bars and just like candles and like all these things that are like this local company, but they're on Hulu.
Goop starts getting on there, and then it's really jumped the shark, and when Goop starts to advertise on CTV. So the difference is that you can look like a much bigger brand with a well done ad, and quite frankly, you can create that ad on Canva for like $12 a month right now, or 20. It'll be $25 a month, but you can do stuff pretty cheaply, and you can get it in there. You just have to know the right outlets to get it in. Gen AI is just not destroying, but it's taking away traffic. So marketers have to find other ways to find those eyeballs, right? And to get in front of them. And search obviously is, 75% of everybody's of traffic is usually from search. If it's not return visitors, depending on what type of site you have. But, you're going to see your biggest now from organic. If your organic share is shrinking because of Google, restricting the amount of above the fold organic content, you better have some other strategies for reaching those people. Like I said, pay-per-click's good. The problem is they keep pushing. You'll get to the top, but now, they keep restricting. Like, what is broad search? What is broad match? I mean, they're redefining it to shrink the options so that it's in the house's favor. So it's kind of like being at the craps table and them taking away half of the squares. Like, I only have half the chance now to do this right. And that's really what I see as the restrictive practices of Google's pay-per-click policies that are being put in place are pointing you towards having to spend more money. It's like when LinkedIn tells you should be putting up 5 ads. Really? Why? Because you make more money, right? I don't get any more exposure for 5 ads. They're going to go to the same audience, same reach. Oh, they get tired of seeing the same ad. Most people don't even see the damn thing. They're lucky if I show it to them 5 times and they scroll past it, and you tell me it's a scene when they see for 1 second, right? So, reporting is skewed towards the advertising platform. And that's where I see, like I said, with Gen AI, those results are definitely taking away some of your click traffic. But are they also, when you write, now that we know Gen AI is here to stay, and that 30% of all searches are going to return Gen AI results, now you got to start, like you said, beefing up your FAQs. Start writing blog articles that the H2s are question marks, that you're using bulleted lists of answers. Write in a way that you can, I always say, if you're going to do SEO well, you got to be like a bird on the shoulder of the person doing the search. You've got to understand the motivation behind the keywords that are being typed in, right? So it's the difference between when I have done speeches and taught on pay-per-click, there's 4 buckets. There's your brand, your generic, your competition, and intent. I'll give you a rundown. So brand would be like Remke cord grips, right? It's the number one product we sell. Second would be generic, would be cord grips. Third would be competition, would be Hubble cord grips or Hubble Kellums. And then the fourth one, intent, would be 1/4-inch stainless steel cord grips with mesh. That guy's going to buy that. The other ones, they're not. We don't know if they're going to buy it. But that guy, he's looking for a very specific product. When you start then taking your pay-per-click results and transferring it into your SEO, now you can start to really see which terms convert, right? Which terms are the most important to your audience, right? So SEO and pay-per-click should always go hand in hand. If you're doing SEO without pay-per-click, you're literally trying to, searching in the dark. And yes, Moz and SEMrush and Ahrefs can all help you very much, but nothing's going to help you more than actual live traffic, clicking on a link and doing crap on your website, because Google doesn't do that. Who does that? Users. Users do that. And Google isn't a user. Google is a bot. It's an index. It's a library. It's there to hopefully give some relevant results to some user. Your job is to get people to do things, right? So pay-per-click tells you what keywords have the most impact or intent, and you can test your intent. Competition, load in your competitor SKUs, write some really good ads looking for X, try this. It does Y, right? The best written ads, and then this gets into in generative AI, now you're going to start to see more paid ads. So you got to take a little bit more, the best paid pay-per-click ads that I've ever had written or used, always to answer a question. So if it's a competitor, it's looking for, and then use their keyword, use their UPC or SKU, and then ours is better. You can't stay. I mean, come on. So you're challenging somebody, right? Those are the sorts of things where you want to create not mistrust, but almost like doubt. It's like, what I was looking for isn't good, right? And so I know we're talking about Gen AI, but how to beat Gen AI is to use your pay-per-click ads to figure out what your highest intent keywords are going to be. Then go, balls to the wall with that.
Competitor ads are, in my opinion, surprisingly effective. The platform we're using right now to record this podcast is called Riverside. Just like your basic kind of video chat interface, but it records 2 separate audio files on each person's computer separately and then combines them together. So it's better if there's a drop in your Wi-Fi or a glitch or something like that. And I was searching for, I think the market leader in the space is called StreamYard. And so when I was about to get going with this podcast and get started, I was going to sign up for StreamYard, and I searched for it, and then I saw an ad for exactly what you just said. It was thinking about StreamYard, go with us instead, or learn about the alternatives. I was like, oh, who else is out there that I can go with? And then I found this service instead, and the pricing was a little bit lower, and it seemed like it worked out pretty well. So I went with that one instead of StreamYard. But
right. And that's the power. That's the power of answering questions that people didn't even know they had. Because why do people type in something into a search engine? To get an answer. It's called search for a reason. They're search. They didn't go here. This isn't Yahoo News or Yahoo Entertainment where they're just scrolling through endless piles of crap, right? Looking for somebody getting kicked in the nuts, right? So the key is that you've got to understand who your audience is, and I get it. Usually when you go over a budget of $20,000 a month, some of the stuff that we're talking about kind of gets swept under the carpet because you've got so much, you've got a lot of ability to cover a lot of different bases, and you're just like, well, we'll just cover it all. Okay, well, you just pissed away half your budget.
Yeah, that's not exact enough. That's not.
No, but that's, Paul, you've had plenty of clients. I ran my own agency for a dozen years. Plenty of clients in pay-per-click who that's what they look. They're like, oh, we'll just spend money at it. We'll just throw money at it, and the ROI is okay. ROAS is okay. It's not, it's not blowing the doors off, but it's still making 4x, right? Well, you should be making 14x. I mean, hell, It's crazy that these people, they accept that that's okay because they can just throw money at it. They don't want to delve down into, like I said, the 4 buckets and really start to dissect what that traffic's doing, right? And what are the best words for people to be coming in on, what shows the intent. So many clients that I had when I had my own agency years ago wouldn't focus on that. And this is back when it was kind of more wide open for Google search. You could, 7, 8 word terms. I mean, you could go really deep, right? And then you could start to distill it with the tools that they had. Well, they've taken a lot of those tools and scaled them back to like, oh, you can only get access to this, or you can only use this for this, and you can only, do broad match under these circumstances. And, it's all geared towards them making more money and you spending more money with them to get the same basic reach and exposure that you could have 5 years ago. You can't do it now with the same budget. And so that's, I think, universally, I'd love to hear what people have to say after the podcast is, are you seeing a giant change in the results over the last 5 years? Are you spending the same amount of money and getting the same results, or are you spending more money to get the same results? It's good something to chew on for that. So
yeah, it's interesting because nowadays, and you might know about this sort of thing, there's some more, let's just say, invasive ways of building a retargeting audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so this woman that I'm working with right now, she's got this platform that she puts on her clients' websites that, speaking about, these big tech companies knowing everything about us and having less privacy and that kind of thing,
mm-hmm.
It will, I don't know how it identifies you. It could be your IP address. Maybe it is a cookie or a pixel or your browser or something
Device
like
ID,
that. But
right?
Yeah, device ID. It will identify a user landing on a website, and it will show the personal profile of that user, like the name, the mm-hmm. personal email address, the physical address, that mm-hmm. kind of stuff.
I have that. I actually I'm testing that right now. It's called identity resolution.
Is that what that's called?
I'm testing, and I'm testing 3 companies right now, because the way that we market is we create custom audience profiles. We market to specific companies and specific titles, roles, and departments within those companies, right? So I don't go after like ABM. In my mind, ABM is dead. What I go after is I don't go after the haystacks. I go after the needles. So basically, I already know who I want. I just don't know their name, right? So okay. I know the title. I know where they work. Sales has told me that because when you go to sales and say, who would you like to sell to? If you say, just give me the company name and their titles, it's much easier than any other way I've ever found to talk to sales. They understand that. They can deal with that. If you say, hey, give me a market and tell me, which market you want to go after. And, they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean by market? I'm like, well, if I want to go after, a vertical market, such as electrical engineers who work at wastewater plants. Oh, yeah. Well, why don't you go back to your reps and find out what the wastewater plants are in your territories, and then I'll put those together and we'll find all the electrical engineers and all the related things. And that's how we build our list as far as that when we market to them. And then I load those into Google Ads and LinkedIn and Meta to go after, to serve ads to those people. And then we go out and look at who's engaging, what companies got the most impressions, what companies are coming to the website through visitor intel, through sales intel. And then we make a decision to go out and purchase, emails of those titles from those companies from sales intel. And then we start banging emails about 6-8 weeks after they've seen the awareness campaign for the ads. So they start to see that the open rates are much better on that than they would be if I didn't show them ads, because I know exactly who I'm looking at. I know exactly the audience that I'm going after. Yeah. And that makes a huge difference in the way that we do our marketing in general. We use HubSpot and we do all the workflows and automations for our sales qualified leads, for our SQLs. For the non-SQLs, MQLs, we basically have a whole, front end that we're mailing drip campaigns to them and seeing who's opening, who's engaging, and then we kind of move forward. But the identity resolution allows me to then say, okay, not only did I go to this company for this title, but now that company person, Bob Jones, who is the comptroller for that company, which is a title I was targeting, showed up on my website without having to fill out a form. I know who that is. Mm-hmm. It closes the flywheel And it allows me to then go back to sales and say, you told me to get this guy. He's here. And by the way, he looked at this page 5 times. He's been to the site 3 times. And he's also, other people from his company have logged onto the website. I haven't identified them, but I got this guy. And that way they can say, oh, okay, now you've closed the loop on me, Jim. Now I've got somebody in HubSpot that when I open it up and say this contact has done this, I can trigger an event or a task in HubSpot to say he's reached this profile threshold, he's done these acts. Now I'm going to send you this note to say you should probably contact him, or I'm going to send it to the third-party rep and then send you a task to follow up with the third-party rep that I sent the lead to, right? So
yeah, that's insane.
Well,
I mean, we not that long ago, we all thought that retargeting was such a big invasive deal, and now it's like, oh, this IDR stuff is basically, like you said, it closes the flywheel and it identifies somebody upon landing on your site.
Yeah, but it also makes sales happy.
Who they work with.
It makes sales happy, which is the number one thing,
It does promote commerce for sure, but it takes away some of the anonymous element of the internet is shrinking with every passing day.
Well, like I said, lead forensics should be shaking in their boots. Places Albatross, same thing. Albatross. Good companies. I've tested them both. What they give you is haystacks. I don't want haystacks. I want the needles. And marketing from your CRM, and we're way off the Gen AI topic, but marketing from your CRM is way more effective than marketing in an ABM. So I know about you when you come to my website. If I know who you are and I have you in my system already, and it says Bob Jones from ABC Company is in here, and Bob Jones from ABC Company has been identified by IDR. Now they talk to each other. Now I know to trigger Bob Jones getting an email because he was on my website and he was on 10 pages, and I know what pages he was on, and I can say, you looked at this product. Are you interested? Here's Jack from our company who's an expert at it. Here's videos on it. And I can create that nurturing on a personal one-to-one scale level, at scale, one-to-one personalization at scale directly, because now I have a database tied to that person who I don't know, but now I do. And now I can trigger all kinds of things for him. It's the biggest blocker that I have to that is sales, is the sales department themselves. They don't believe that I can do this. They're like, yeah, no, that's not possible. I'm like, no, not only is it possible, but we're doing it. So I mean, I'm trying to bring cutting edge strategy and technology and marketing stack options to all the divisions of my company. We have 22 different brands that we sell under 2 different divisions. And so my job is to create a bank of resources for those brands to be able to market themselves very effectively. And so all they have to do is, like I said, drop in the company name and the title. And if you want to market, say goodbye. If they want a specific market like Albuquerque, New Mexico, or LA, South LA, real easy to do that. Very easy to do that. So, for us, it's more about being pinpointing the right person instead of trying to throw a net in and see how many, dolphins we need to fish out of the tuna.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for dropping that info. That's good stuff on the IDR. I think that I am going to have a few more discussions with some other guests about that.
I'd be happy to come back on and share my results with you, because I'm looking for match rate, and I'm running it on my mini site, which is the purest traffic possible. It's all SEO, it's all organic and paid, and there's no noise. My signal to noise ratio is very low on that site, as opposed to my main site where my signal to noise ratio is really high, because everybody that has to do business with us has to come in and log in there and put together POs and put together quotes. So there's a lot of people on my main website that have to be there. So it's really hard for me, and we'll go back to the mini sites, it's really hard for me to separate out like my pure net new names organic traffic from all the other traffic that's running through my website, because if anybody who's used GA4 knows that, new visits is a concept for them. It's not particularly they're not particularly strong when it comes to a lot of the metrics that they're reporting on. There's a lot of good things about GA4 and the way that you can put things together, but there are also some giant holes like the words "not set" are things like at night I see that on the ceiling. I see it in my nightmares. I see it. It's like it's the worst thing for a marketer to have to see is like "not set" or just slash. Like, yeah, is it the index page or is it something that you just made up as far as that's concerned? So you can try to game the system. There isn't in my world, there isn't a link that comes into one of my properties that doesn't have a UTM. Literally, if somebody puts a link in without a UTM, either I've got a whole system to write their ass up. So it's that important, right? And one of the systems, every system that I see for IDR reads the UTM, so I know exactly where that person came from and what they did, right? Now the problem is that their idea of what an enhanced listing is or an enhanced record is a Gmail account, which doesn't do me any good whatsoever as a B2B marketer. I need to know you have a LinkedIn account. I need to know your business address. I need to know that. I'm not sending you Mary Jane, who's the controller at ABC Company, Mary Jane 67 at gmail.com. No, I'm not sending you a personal message. That's never going to happen. I still like my sending ability, right? So, and even though we use HubSpot to send email, which is probably the worst decision ever made. So the thing I like most about what we do with our marketing system now is that we literally pinpoint the exact targets we want. We put them into the CRM, waiting for them to show up. And when they do, we now know, and it's only 10 to 15% match rate. I mean, you're not talking, I mean, you got companies that are like, oh, we do 40 to 50%. I'm like, I'll test you. And I got 3 active tests going on right now. So when that happens, when I'm finished by the end of the year, it'd be fun to come back on and share some results with you and your listeners as far as, some of the things that we saw, some of the pitfalls. One thing I will say about somebody looking at IDR is you have to be very careful that the company you're talking to isn't just like, there's a company called Candy, CANDDI, and they're very good at making you think that they're going to give you the exact identity of the person. But when you press them, no, it's just Candy's listing of the people that might be the person. And so you have to be
that's
very
no good.
Well, it's what lead forensics and Albacross do, right? It's what ABM used to do, right? They used to say, oh, okay, well, I know they're in this group, so I'm going to just spam everybody in the group and hopefully one of them responds, right? Whereas now I turn it around and go, no, my group is way smaller. I know what their pain points are, and I know what they respond to because I've worked with sales to find out that the guy in finance is more worried about the upfront numbers as opposed to the guy in operations who wants to know how he's going to receive your merchandiser in 40 locations and how is he going to stock those, right? So if I talk to the finance guy about that, he's not going to respond very well, is he? But if I talk to the finance guy about here's our financing options, here's how you get your credit app in, here's how that sort of stuff, that works much better. And that's where audience targeting allows me to do that very, very effectively. It's a amazing system that they've put together. It's a company called Say Primer, SAYPRIMER. And they buy into large contracts and they meet that out so that you can actually take part in that sort of targeting that was never available to smaller advertisers in the past. If you're, National Geographic or somebody who spend buttloads of money every month, this is something that you get access to all the time. But, like anything, if you spend a lot of money, you get to go to the champagne room. So, if you don't, you get to use the tools they give you, and the tools they give you at Google. We never used Google Ads before because we couldn't get anywhere close to our audience using their tools. Nowhere close. And tell me, I mean, how are they going to find a counter guy at Gray Bar Electric in Yuma, Arizona? He doesn't raise his hand. He's nothing special. Maybe he watches Twitch when he gets home. That's about as special as he gets. And, he's not like an electrician who's like really proud to say, hey, I studied for 12 years to be a journeyman electrician and I'm raising my hand on Facebook. That's who I am. Right. That doesn't happen with the counter sales guy. doesn't raise his hand. He's not. So in B2B, it's very difficult to find the people you need to talk to. Typically, aren't hand raisers. They're salespeople. They live in the shadows of the internet, right? If they post anything, it's all about their personal lives, their kids, or their golf game, or what fish they caught over the weekend, or what have you. But the one thing I know electricians love more than anything else, funny T-shirts. They love funny T-shirts. Like the number 3 and 4 influencers in the electrical market are funny T-shirt guys. So what do? You target them people. So there's more than one ways to skin a cat. And just to kind of tie this up, generative AI, and this is just my experience with it, is that it seems to be taking some traffic away. And it seems to be giving Google another way for them to keep people longer on their results, almost with the goal of a zero-click search, so that they can get them to something that they'll click on that makes them money. So the less organic content that they put on the page, by being Gen AI and encapsulating the answer for you, actually allows them to put more of their paid on the page, because now you got your answer. You didn't scroll down. One thing I'd love to see, and I doubt that they'll ever release it, is the scroll rate difference between Gen AI results and non-Gen AI results. What scroll depth are they looking at? I wish they would report it. I've never seen that number, but I do believe that it's probably less for Gen AI results than it is for non-Gen AI results.
Yeah, that would be good data. That's interesting.
Yeah. So anyways, like I said, I mean, it's been, my feeling is it's only going to get more intense with the more computing power that they put at it. And it's only going to become more personalized, really personalized, based on, all the things that you do that they aren't able to capture of the 353 million people that live in the United States. Now with better computing power and just owning way more data centers. I mean, there's 40 data centers under construction right now in the United States. I mean, there's a boom. I mean, there's a huge boom. I mean, if you look at the REITs that own these AI, that own the land under them, they're booming. So it's insane, like how much computing power is going into the next generation. And so the next generation of search isn't going to change greatly for the general public, but it will change greatly for you as a person. Because my feeling is that as quantum computing becomes more the norm than the anomaly, they're going to know so much more about us, because they can track so much more about what we do and be able to keep it all straight. That's where I think the results will become way more personalized. And that at that point, I don't know if you'll ever see an organic result. I mean, who knows? You may, the SEO as we know it may cease to exist, simply because there's just the way that they use quantum computing to arrive at the algorithm will probably change greatly over the next 3 to 5 years. And Google is leading the charge in it. I mean, they've invested so much money into OpenAI that, and OpenAI, the next step for them is to go to quantum computing to say, okay, what can we do to predict better results? Well, if we could do a million different models, we could pick the best one. Right now, the best language models don't do that. It's all still linear. So when it becomes omni, it'll be a much different thing. So anyways.
Well, you got to wonder if we're going to even make it that far, or if the robots are going to take over before that.
No, robots won't take over. They will in warehouses, and exoskeletons. I mean, I want my own exoskeleton for home. I swear to God, you lift trees out of the ground and shit like that. So, I mean, yeah, some of these things are going to be some fun stuff to play with, but in the long run, I think SEO, what we do now, things have never changed from the beginning of SEO. If you write good content and you write content that, is going to, inspire people to click on a link, Google's always going to value that, right? The problem is, do you have enough visibility for it to make a difference in the search results, right? And visibility is defined as backlinks, as people finding you in different places that aren't on your website. That's what creates authority, is when people click on something and it goes back to your website. That creates the technical term that I love, good juju. That's the good juju. I want, if I did a podcast, I think I would call it the good juju, but it would be, it's all about creating that authority, right? And you can put up author pages, and I'm not even sure that works that well. It depends on who it is and there. But what does work is good content that connects with the end user, and people clicking on the links in there. The more you can have that done, that's one of the biggest signals. That and backlinks, those two things. If you can, do all your on page and do your technical, all the things that you're supposed to do. But the content itself, if it doesn't get anybody to click on it, Google's going to devalue it, because they want people moving. They want people to keep moving, and the only way they understand engagement is by clicking. They can look at scroll depth, but you could just leave the page and then leave it open for 25 hours. Is that engagement? No. And they realized that early on. We used to game it. We used to game all that shit, right? I mean, that was all the SEO hacks and shit like that. It was, how many clicks can a bot click on, and, whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's how pages with no content scored number one, is just by backlinking and what have you. So all those little tricks are gone, but the new trick is, how can I get people to click on my stuff? And so put buttons in your content. Calls to action, make sure that you lead people down answers, and then more answers, right? That's never going to change. That's always going to score well. That's always going to get you what you want. But, you also have one other thing to keep in mind, and you mentioned it before, Paul, competition. How good is your competition? I mean, if they're really good at it, it's going to be difficult for you to break in, right? It's difficult. So you might have to have 20 pages where you thought you only needed 2. There's right. And with AI, with AI, I mean, I'm not saying let AI write your content, but I'm going to tell you that it gets pretty close. You still have to hand tender it, right? You still have to put the links in. You still have to do all the work. But, I mean, if you say, write an article about this using this is the focus keyword, and then sprinkle in these other content theme keywords, it'll do it. And it'll do a pretty good job of it. And it'll write if you tell it to write like a blog, it'll write like a blog. If you tell it to write like a content article, it'll write like a content article. So, I use it. I mean, but I don't, it's not my final product. Nothing AI ever writes is my final product. Maybe subject lines, because that, they're pretty good at that. But
yeah, subject lines, meta descriptions, a few things are probably good enough. But
and meta descriptions. But the meta descriptions even matter anymore. I mean, Google decides whether it's going to scrape your page or take your meta description, right? So for the most part, I've gone to write a better first instance of text in your code, than worrying about a meta description any longer, because that first paragraph, that first instance of text is what it's going to look for. It used to just look at that. Now it says, if I can't find what I like there, I'll go further down in the page and just take something that I think is good, right? So as much effort as you can put into that first paragraph. And another little tip that I like is linking to Wikipedia in the first sentence for your exact match keyword or your key phrase. So it just sets up the article to say, hey, I'm linking to the highest domain authority I can find. And, Google loves Wikipedia. So if they see you linking to Wikipedia, I'm not saying it works. I'm just saying, within the first sentence, if you can link out to a high authority site for the focus keyword of that article or that blog post or that piece of content, it does have, in my experience, it does have some effect. But once again, these are completely anecdotal, nothing scientific whatsoever. So I'm completely absolving myself of any hacking knowledge whatsoever. But that's one thing. Then positive sentiment keywords is another thing that I think Gen AI does pick up on a bit. So that's another thing, is putting positive sentiment within 4 to 5 keywords of 4 to 5 words of your focus keyword or your theme keywords. That and then linking the positive sentiment back to the page that has the focus of the keyword phrase that you're trying to score well for. That positive sentiment can't be ignored. Google's really trying with, was it neural NLP, to figure that out, right? So they don't understand that badass is not good, is good, right? So because the word bad's in it and ass is in it, so like they don't really get that. But until some human editor goes, oh yeah, badass means good and bad means good in certain situations, it doesn't have the ability to understand that, and it's trying really hard to do that, right? But it can't. But if you help it by not using the word badass and you say really great resources here, or exceptional, or using some, you can go have, I have a thing from a company called Opt-in Monster, 700 plus power words, and I keep it handy at my desk. Paul, you have the same damn thing. You have a swipe file of power words. I know you do. We all use it, and don't forget, words are power. And especially
that's copy. Yeah, that's what copy's all about.
Right, exactly. And powerful copy now is about positive sentiment, because that's what Google is trying to say. Oh, we'll outsmart the SEO guys, and we'll just make sure that anybody that writes normal stuff and says nice things, then we'll do it. But most people don't link the positive sentiment, so they have to go extract it from it. But if you link the positive sentiment, it just makes their job easier. So
that's a good tip. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So anyways, my friend, that's about as much as I have to say about Gen AI. And I probably talked so long, 90% of the people have left by now. So
we'll cut it down. We'll make it clean and make it, we'll slim it up a little bit, but, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave the whole thing in. But do you have any, do you want people to find you anywhere, contact you? I mean,
I have a LinkedIn. No. It's Jim Lillig on LinkedIn. JIMLILLIG on LinkedIn. I don't have anything to sell. I don't have anything to promote. I love what I do,